Imagine being sucked into a pipe. Streams of water pull you and your gear deeper and deeper. You are overwhelmed and not understanding what is happening. You hold your breath, sensing mortal danger. In a moment, you find yourself trapped in a narrow space. Around you is absolute darkness, the groans of the injured, and the screams of the terrified. Water mixed with oil burns your eyes and leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. Communication with the outside world is cut off. No one knows about your dire situation, and the chances of rescue diminish with each passing minute. It sounds like the plot of a horror movie, but unfortunately, unlike movies, the events of this story and its participants are real. The victims of this disaster will never learn its cause. Let's shed light on this event and try to understand what happened on that fateful day. On February 25, 2022, it was a typical workday for the divers of LMCS. Christopher Budram, Kazim Ali, Yusuf Henry, Rishi Nangasar, and Faisal Kurban were supposed to carry out repair work on an oil pipeline near the city of Pointe-à-Pierre. They were working at a site owned by the state oil company, Paria Fuel Trading Company, located in Trinidad and Tobago. For the divers, such repair work was routine. They were all certified specialists with a combined experience of over 30 years. The tight-knit team often took on assignments at various oil facilities, so no one expected anything to go wrong. The team headed to a temporarily non-operational section of the pipeline, a long structure. One end of the pipeline was at berth 5, where tankers arrived to unload oil, and the other was at the berth 6, where the oil was sent for processing. To complete the task, the team needed to isolate the top part of the pipe from ocean water to access the section to be repaired. They used a diving bell for this, which they placed over the pipe. Once the bell was installed and the water level normalized, the divers began their work. Entering the bell, they removed their diving gear and started the repair. One of the tasks was to dismantle the pneumatic plug of the berth 6. The pneumatic plug is a cylindrical chamber used for temporarily sealing a pipeline in emergency situations. This device was installed 2 weeks prior to prevent oil leakage and water intrusion into the pipeline. Kazim, one of the divers, handed a wrench to a colleague to loosen the valve on the pneumatic plug. Climbing onto a ledge and preparing to remove their gear, the divers felt a sudden pressure drop as soon as the valve was opened. Cubic meters of water instantly rushed into the diving bell, sucking the unsuspecting divers and their equipment into the pipe. They had no chance to understand what was happening and react. To illustrate this, I will show you a video of a crab caught in a similar situation. Here is the crab going about its business, unaware of the danger. Within seconds, it is sucked into the pipe. The crab was powerless against the mighty force pulling it in. Fortunately, the divers' team was slightly luckier. They were pushed to a section of the pipe where air pockets had formed, allowing them to stay alive for a while. The irony is that these were air pockets caused the vortex that dragged the divers into the depths of the pipeline. One of the divers had a camera, capturing the entire horrific incident. I will show the full video at the end of the episode, but for now, let's understand what happened. Let's conduct a brief reconstruction of the events. According to the plan, the divers were supposed to remove the pneumatic plug that was separating the oil from contact with air and water. The pipeline was supposed to be completely filled with oil. In this case, the pressure in the diving bell would hold back the column of oil, allowing the divers to work without life-threatening risks. However, they did not know that under the pneumatic plug was a column of air, and the pipeline was only half filled with oil. Removing the plug caused a pressure drop in the bell, and the high-pressure air rushed down the pipe, dragging the divers and their equipment with it. The water filled the space in the vortex, pulling them into the depths of the pipeline. Christopher Budram, one of the divers working on the site that day, will better explain what happened.
Everything just spinning and beating you up, and it happened so fast. I couldn't react. The only thing I remember able to do was cover my head, like in the fetal position. After that, all I remember, I didn't even remember actually getting pulled in the pipe. I just remember going hurled through the pipe at unbelievable speeds. I couldn't hold my breath no longer, man. Truth. When you're holding your breath for too long, after a while, your body, your lungs just fight. Your airways close, you see a noise. Your body suffering to pull air. An unbelievable nightmare. Your eyes burning. Every time you try to open your eyes, it's burning. You're pitch black, you can't see nothing. Your throat burning. Your ears ringing. Your body sore. And at that point, I tell myself I was gonna dead. Because everything inside me open and rescue. Everything inside me open and rescue was going on. Nobody was making an attempt to rescue me.
Stopping, the divers assessed the situation. They conducted a roll call to determine if anyone was injured and if they could move. In absolute darkness, covered in viscous soil, the injured and disoriented divers tried to figure out how far they were. The depth of the pipeline was about 17 meters, roughly the height of a 5-story building. Their exact position was unknown, but it was estimated they were at the 90 to 100 meter mark. They were fortunate that the current had brought them to one of the air pockets in the pipeline. These pockets formed at the locations of the support frames that held the pipes at the ocean floor. Over time, the pipes settled and air pockets formed at the support frame locations. After some time, the team began moving towards one end of the pipe, making their way through thick oily sediment. Fighting pain and anxiety, the group hoped to reach berth 6. They did not know which berth the pipe would lead to, but they could not remain idle. An hour later, the divers faced a new problem. The water level was rising. At some point, they had to swim, keeping their faces above the water. Continuing to walk was impossible. Some divers were seriously injured and could not move further. Chris Boudram and Kazim Ali decided to swim ahead and find an air pocket. They promised to return with help. Raising their faces above the water and then holding their breath, they swam to the next air pocket. Soon, they found 2 diving cylinders and their joy was boundless. It was a chance for salvation. Using the cylinders, Chris and Kazim swam to the next pocket. However, Kazim's injuries worsened and his condition became critical. Together, they decided that it would be better for Chris to use the remaining oxygen supply and swim to the end of the pipe to bring back rescuers. Pushing the cylinder ahead, Chris made his way through the water and oil residue. Eventually, he reached the vertical section of the pipeline. A thought struck him. What if he was swimming toward a closed section of the pipe, one that was sealed shut? This would mean a quick and inevitable end not only for him but for the entire team of divers. The risk of being buried alive increased with each passing minute, but the stakes were too high to give in to panic. Gathering his strength, Chris said a prayer, pushed up from the bottom, and swam upward. His oxygen cylinder was nearly empty. He swam the last few meters holding his breath. His lungs were tightening, his mind began to blur, and his injured body filled with pain. And then, in the literal sense, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, he managed to reach the top of the pipeline. It was berth 6, the very one that had pulled them into the depths of the pipeline several hours earlier. His joy knew no bounds, but it was too early to celebrate. Exhausted, Chris began to bang on the pipe and attract attention in any way he could. Fortunately, a member of the repair crew responded to his signal and pulled Chris out of the deep water trap. Chris' condition was critical. He was overwhelmed and exhausted. His body was completely covered in oily waste. His mucous membranes and eyes were contaminated, and he was in pain from his injuries. But despite all this, the first thing he did was inform about the divers below who urgently needed rescue, as well as the air pockets that had allowed them to survive after being dragged into the pipeline. After this, he was taken to the hospital for medical treatment. Before Chris appeared, the LMCS team could not imagine that the divers could have survived in such a situation. They, like the divers themselves, thought the pipe was completely filled with oil, and in such a scenario, anyone who got into the pipeline would have died immediately. Even the oxygen cylinders with the divers would not have helped them survive for such a long time. But ultimately, Chris's rescue became a glimmer of hope for the divers trapped inside. The remaining divers at the site went to their aid. Just try to imagine the relief felt by the people inside at that moment. They knew that professional divers equipped with all kinds of gear were on duty on the ship, and they waited. They waited for their rescue. Hoping to see the bright flash of searchlights, hear the metallic clank of descending oxygen cylinders, and the voices of the rescue team, the trapped divers spent many hours in the trap. They endured pain and a lack of oxygen. With every breath of acrid, oily air, its quantity decreased, as did their chances of rescue. But they did not give up. They diligently banged on the pipes, trying to attract attention and indicate their location. They tried to make their way to the exit. They tried to survive. It seemed they were so close and that rescuers should comfort them. But reality was ruthless. Just imagine what the divers felt at that moment. The fear they experienced, the emotions that overwhelmed their minds, and what they thought in their last seconds. But why were the divers not saved? After all, the rest of the LMCS team was above, and the site itself belonged to a state-owned oil company. Were the necessary people not found, or was the rescue impossible from the outset? Both yes and no. LMCS tried to deploy their own forces and those of the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. Later, specialists from Paria, the company that owned the repair site, joined them. However, the actions taken by Paria raised many questions, both among the public and among specialists working at this team. Some claimed that Paria forbade divers from entering the pipeline to rescue the trapped team. Others argued that the team had long since died and that the currents inside were caused by external factors. It is likely that Paria employees did indeed forbid LMCS from starting the rescue operation, fearing further human losses. Additionally, there was still a significant amount of oil in the pipe that could have leaked into the ocean, potentially causing ecological, reputational, and financial losses. In court, Paria's representatives provided information that they had involved many external companies to resolve the situation. Almost all of them concluded that the rescue operation was associated with too high a risk. Even the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard could not conduct the rescue operation due to the lack of necessary equipment and personnel. Moreover, Paria's lawyers argue that the company bears no legal responsibility for the situation, as the actions leading to this disaster were taken by employees of a third-party company. They also claimed that their company's representatives did not authorize the removal of the pneumatic plug, the removal of which led to the tragic consequences. However, it is important to note the following. During the rescue of Christopher Boudram, the remaining team of divers was still alive. This is confirmed by groups that searched the pipeline area. They recorded sounds resembling knocking for 48 hours before it ceased. For almost 3 days, the entire country held its breath in anticipation of a miracle. But the miracle did not happen. On February 28 and then on March 1, the bodies of the divers were found and identified. After this catastrophe, a commission was formed to investigate. It included many specialists and independent experts. According to the 380-page report, Paria had failed in its duty of care to the divers. Not only did the report blame the company's poor operating procedures for the disaster, but it also highlighted that rescue divers were prepared to return to the scene once Boudram had been brought to the surface. However, Paria's terminal operation manager, Colin Piper, who was managing the company's incident command system, refused to allow them to attempt a rescue. During the trial, Piper argued that he had made the decision to prevent any further loss of life. The report concluded that he had not acted reasonably, wasted time waiting for a camera drone to return pictures from inside the pipeline, and failed to calculate how much air each of the men would need to survive. The report stated, all realistic options should have been considered. Even if the camera revealed what they sought, no plan to carry out the rescue had been put in place. No attempt was made to engage with the country's best experts in commercial diving who had arrived on site. The surviving diver Christopher Boudram, who has not been able to return to work following the deaths of his colleagues, said that he welcomed the report's findings but did not have confidence that criminal charges would ever be brought against Paria. The report also said that LMCS was equally culpable for the outcome of the disaster, although it would not be prosecuted under criminal law as it had been effectively prevented from pursuing rescue by Paria.
I'm trying to come up. General. Yeah. Yeah. Right behind you, man. All right behind you? You're right behind me? Yeah. You don't know when you're trying to come up? It's not going up. Who making all that noise? Come on, all that we let's figure it out. We gotta go. We gotta start moving. Yeah. Where you at? I don't know. I'm trying to come up. Trying to come up. But don't worry, all is good. All is good, I'm gonna get you this. I'm trying to come out. Huh? Yeah. Who is that more than this? Yusuf? Oh, Yusuf? How long you have to walk before you meet Faizi? You and Faizi was together all the time? Right now we are Faizi together. Right now. Who else with you? We are Faizi alone. Cars with you? Right there. Right there where? Cars, everything alright with you? No. Any limbs break? All legs break. Your leg, alright. Five, anything happen to you? Five? No way. Yusuf, anything happen to you? Yeah, boy. What happened? Alright. Alright.